Bad news travels fast. Scandal, misinformation, and propaganda mixed with social media has become the order of the day. But as a pen-carrying, truth-fearing writer, I sought to go beyond the pitch to dig for the backstory on why St Lucia failed to participate in the 2022 World Cup qualified matches. I dug up the foreign-based player concept. I found the St. Lucians on football scholarship overseas. I tracked down the millions of dollars provided by FIFA for the advancement of local football. And most importantly, I brought the team of players responsible for the management of local football together, and I asked them the pointed questions to bring you the most comprehensive fact-finding mission on St. Lucia football, its road to World Cup qualification, its revised modus operandi, and its youth-centric approach. And now, as St. Lucia is on the cusp of a semi-professional football league, I critically examine the machinations and possibilities for local players, as Untold Stories takes you way beyond the pitch.
A little over 3 minutes plus additional time remaining. As so often, Portugal's hopes rest on Cristiano Ronaldo's shoulders.
The game dates back to the Mesoamerican culture, which played with a rock some 3,000 years ago. The Han Dynasty played a game called Tisuchu, which involved kicking a ball through a 30 to 40 centimeter opening into what would now see as a goal made of cane with a net attached to it. The ball used during these games was made from leather and filled with hair and feathers. Various forms of the game were played in numerous countries, but the present form of the game developed in England in the 12th century. The game included punches of the ball with the fist. This early form of football was also much rougher and violent. The game involved plenty of people and took place over large areas in towns. The rampage of these games would cause damage on the town and even death. In 1314, the Lord Mayor of London banned football in the city due to the chaos it caused. If you were caught playing the game in London, you could even be imprisoned. During the 100 years England and France were at war, King Edward II, Richard II, Henry IV, and Henry V made the game illegal throughout the UK due to it taking away focus from practicing military disciplines, which were deemed more useful. For a long time, there was no clear distinction between football and rugby. There were also many variations concerning the size of the ball, the number of players, and the length of the match. Proper rules of the game were decided at a meeting in Cambridge in 1848, and the first football association was formed in 1863. This also led to a standardization of the size and weight of the ball, and also divided the players into two codes: association football and rugby. The Fédération Internationale de Football Association, more commonly known as FIFA, was founded in 1904, and a Foundation Act was signed by representatives from France, Belgium, Denmark, the Netherlands, Spain, Sweden, and Switzerland. England and the other British territories did not join FIFA from the start. They had invented the game and saw no reason to subordinate to an association. Still, they joined in the following year, but would not partake in the World Cup until 1950. The 7 founders created the first FIFA statutes for football, and they wanted to unify the laws of the game to make it fair and clear for all who wanted to play. In 1913, FIFA joined the International Football Association Board, which determined the laws of the game, giving a voice at the table to the world of football, alongside the existing board members, England, Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales. In 1930, FIFA's president Jules Rimet's dream of a global tournament to unite the world of football came true. The FIFA World Cup was born. FIFA has been a game-changer organization in many regards. In 1960, they condemned all forms of racial discrimination at a time when there was segregation, even in sport. In 1966, the first ever World Cup mascot was born. By 1970, the system of red and yellow cards were introduced at the FIFA World Cup. In 1975, they made global football development their #1 priority. In 1977, FIFA held the first international youth tournament. In 1988, they held the International Women's Tournament, and in 1991, the first Women's World Cup.
Oh, it's tough for Norway here, and it's China through again, through Liu Eiling, and it's so easy!
In 1997, the laws of the game were revised. In 1998, FIFA launched the Financial Assistance Program. Since 1904, FIFA's membership has grown from 7 to 209 associations worldwide, and the World Cup has become truly a global event. The World Cup trophy is truly the most prestigious prize in the football world. The first holder of the trophy was Uruguay, winner of the 1930 World Cup. The 1934 World Cup was held in Italy in the time of Benito Mussolini. The Italian team faced Hungary in the final, just to make sure his players were fully focused on winning. Mussolini sent each of them a telegraph which simply read, "Vencier or morir," which meant win or die. Fortunately, the Italians retained their trophy. FIFA splits up its worldwide duties by having 6 confederations, which has helped oversee the game in various continents and regions. These 6 confederations are the AFC, which is in Asia, the CAF, which is in Africa, CONCACAF, which is North and Central America, CONMEBOL, which is South America, OFC, which is Oceania, and UEFA, which is Europe. Currently, FIFA holds major and minor tournaments, with the major ones being the Men's and Women's World Cup, Confederation Cups, Men and Women's Olympic Tournaments, Futsal World Cup, and the Beach Soccer World Cup. Cuba was the first Caribbean country to qualify for the FIFA World Cup in 1938 and made it all the way to the quarterfinals. In 1974, Haiti made it to round 1.
But then came the moment Haiti will never forget.
In the late 90s, the Jamaica men's national team changed their entire football recruitment, training and coaching ethos, and paid off. In 1998, the Reggae Boys were able to qualify for a World Cup match. In 2006, the Soca Warriors made it all the way to the first round, and Trinidad and Tobago became the smallest nation in the world to ever qualify for a World Cup match.
The question that you asked, the best way to answer that is that we're not ready.
But when it gets to the senior level, we still have a lot of amateur football being played.
I watched him on the bed, knowing a man who has worked his entire life, can't afford the cost of his surgery or medication. Mom and I must sell barbecue tickets to help save his life. For less than $4 a day, the cost of a packet of gum, my dad could have been airlifted to get treatment. Some adults can be so insensitive with their lack of foresight. Now, Mom and I either have to watch him wither away or sell a whole lot more barbecue. Why? Because one person didn't care enough to plan.
GTM Medical Insurance. Less than $4 a day for the greatest peace of mind anyone could ask for. Call us today, 458-6300.
St Lucia officially became a member of FIFA in 1988. Since 1998, 32 teams can qualify for the FIFA World Cup finals at the end of a 2-year-long qualification process involving the 211 men's national football teams affiliated to FIFA. 3.5 teams, 3 teams and 1 qualifier from the Intercontinental Playoff from CONCACAF's 35 FIFA-affiliated members can qualify for the World Cup finals. Over the years, the St Lucia Football Association has recycled countless boards and presidents, each with the same mandate. I wanted to fully understand, why hasn't St Lucia been able to qualify for a FIFA World Cup qualifying match in any division? Tell me your full name and designation, please.
Lyndon Cooper, President, St Lucia Football Association.
During the course of this interview, is there any question or subject that I'm not allowed to ask you a question on?
Everything is on the table.
Mr. Cooper, the first question would be, you've been the president of the Football Association for a little over 10 years, correct?
That's correct.
During that time, why hasn't St. Lucia been able to qualify for one World Cup match?
The challenge for us is that we do not have the human resource, the human capital, or the expertise to achieve that goal at the senior level. We could not have done it at the youth level over a period of 2 years. So the reality for us, we can do it, but it's going to take much more longer because of private sector support and government support.
We play amateur football. St. Lucia has been blessed with the number of professional footballers that some of the other countries would have, especially in the Caribbean region, where you have players playing in the Premier League and in other, high-class leagues where they play professional football. They play football every day. They get professional coaching, their professional coaches working with them and so on. 99% of our teams are comprised of locally based players who would play, let's say, 10, 15, maybe 20 matches in a year, and then have to compete against those professionals who play matches every day, who train every day, who live and that's all they do is football. So we have a serious disadvantage in terms of that aspect of it.
The question that you asked, the best way to answer that is that we're not ready to get to the World Cup. We're still in the stages where we're putting things together, we're looking at what needs to be done. That SWOT analysis says to us that perhaps we're halfway there, but there's still a long way to go before we can achieve our ultimate aim.
When we look at St. Lucia at the youth level, we almost can compare ourselves with a lot of the other countries in the region. But when it gets to the senior level, we still have a lot of amateur football being played. Amateur football is not going to take St. Lucia or any country to the World Cup. Because with amateur football, you do what you have to do during the day as your work. And you see coming to train on a national team as a pastime. But if you were in a professional setup, you live, breathe, sleep, eat football. Your training schedule, your training regime, all of that is different because it is geared towards preparing you particularly for that. The training schedule is going to be different. So as long as we remain in an amateur setting, it is going to be a challenge for us.
Still loose, Davies. So Davies forced to turn it back. That's okay. Suriname shifted over to the right. Let's get out to the other side. I like the build, how Canada drew Suriname onto them to play him behind. Great pass. Flag stays down. David!
Now, when we say qualify for a World Cup, or when you ask that question, I can ask a similar question: at what age, at what level? So mandated to get to a World Cup by the president, what I realized wasn't just the senior men, and I felt that the best chance of us doing that would be through the youths, whether it be the under 15, girls or boys, under 17s, under 20. And most of the resources to achieve what you need to achieve would have to be designated to that particular team.
When we took office over 10 years ago, we did a policy position, we took a policy position to what I then called to de-emphasize senior football, meaning that there was nothing more for us at the senior level to compete. We had to go back to the drawing board as far back as under 17. And then after 2 or 3 years, it moved to under 15. 2 years after that, it moved to under 14. Now you have to show an appreciation to the format of regional football. For St Lucia to qualify for a World Cup at any level, from under 17, under 20, 23 or senior, they must play in excess of 13 games. While the bigger countries in the Confederation like Mexico, Canada, the US is going to play less. That's just the reality of the format of world football. We're part of a regional body named Caribbean Football. You then have to qualify in a group of 4, and that depends on how many groups are there based on how many teams participate in. The bigger power of Confederation football are not part of the CFU. They are part of the Confederation, like the Central Americans and the North. We need to come out of our group in the CFU to meet at least 7 teams in order to stand a chance to qualify for us. And those 7 teams are going to include Haiti, Jamaica, Cuba, Trinidad, Costa Rica, Honduras, USA, Canada, etc., etc.
Already in this World Cup. That bounce just before Borjan makes it tough.
Here's Haps, the Feyenoord left back. Goes short. Larea steps out, ball does come across. Still alive inside the area. The shot hits the bar! A real scare!
What do you think needs to be done, step by step, to get the St Lucia team to qualify?
We have to expand on our selection of players. The SLFA now has a policy in terms of its selection policy manual that encompasses every possible player that it can get. So we cannot only depend on players in St Lucia in the amateur setting, as I just mentioned. So we have to do a lot of overseas scouting to see who it is that we can get to strengthen our base. In addition to that, from a local level, we may have to consider bringing a level of professionalism to our football. And by professionalism, we may have to consider having some kind of league where you have selected players playing in a competition and these guys are compensated almost equal to what they may be getting or more in another job, and let it be seen as part of their salary and not a stipend. So they are going to become dedicated to the cause of football.
Ball into the path of Joseph. He gets there and beats Lloyd.
Qualifying for a FIFA World Cup match is the highlight of most countries' football development program. and it is a daunting task for even the wealthiest and most populated countries. To put that into perspective, currently there are 134 teams that have never qualified for a World Cup match. Ranked number 1 in non-qualifying countries is Luxembourg, which has tried 20 times. Number 2, Finland, which has tried 19 times. Number 11, Singapore, has tried 11 times. Number 26, Antigua and Barbuda, 10 tries. Number 41, India, they have tried 8 times. St Lucia is ranked 64 out of 135 countries. In international competition, St Lucia's football team have had some modest success against the Caribbean neighbors, but beyond that geographical area, their experience is quite limited. In fact, when the men's team faced Panama in qualifying for the 2006 FIFA World Cup, it marked the first time they had ever played an opponent outside the Caribbean zone. The men's team has attempted to qualify for the World Cup 4 times, but has yet to make it past the second preliminary round in the CONCACAF region. They've been more competitive in Caribbean Cup competition, advancing as far as the semi-finals. The women's national team attempted to qualify for the Women's World Cup for the first time in 2003, but did not advance past the first qualifying round despite securing 2 wins and a draw. However, the St. Lucia Football Association, under the guidance of FIFA, has been employing the foreign-born player strategy to strengthen the local team.
A foreign-based player is a player who plays outside of his country at any level of football. So if you are a St. Lucian, you play Trinidad and Tobago semi-pro league or off-season league, you are constituted as a foreign-based player for St. Lucia.
Players who qualify to play for a specific country don't have to be born in the country. They have to have a heritage based on either their grandparent or the parent being born in that country. So you might have a player who is now living in England, but his grandmother or grandfather was born in St. Lucia, or his mother or father was born in St. Lucia. So that qualifies him, although he was born in England, to represent St. Lucia.
Foreign-born players, the advantage in that they very likely were most likely at a senior level would have come from a very organized structure that would have given them a proper training regime, that would have given them a level of professionalism as to how they approach the game. That attitude, they can use it to filter down to the local players to make them step up a bit in terms of what is expected at the higher level.
So the players that we've brought through in the senior men's team allowed me to see, okay, for example, we may have a strong back line and midfield, but we don't have any strikers. So if we're going to bring players in, they have to strengthen the area where we weaken.
What have been some of the challenges getting these players?
Among some of those that we have other than administrative ones in terms of guys getting the documents, getting the passport on time, getting their citizenship on time, sometimes you find yourself in a little fight with the guys indicating they are not certain that they want to play for St. Lucia. Because one must recognize that if you're going to take a guy whose mom is Lucian and his dad is Canadian, and he's caught between playing for St. Lucia and Canada at the youth stage, you're going to have to think of 10-1. His first priority may be Canada, because on the FIFA ranking, Canada is ranked higher than St. Lucia.
In an attempt to qualify for the 2022 World Cup, St. Lucia enlisted foreign-based players to help with this initiative. The dilemma for the St. Lucia Football Association when trying to recruit players for St. Lucia is that many times these very same players are also being scouted by their home country. Coming up, I explain exactly why St. Lucia did not participate in the qualifying matches for the upcoming FIFA World Cup. And later, What's it like working with Lyndon Cooper?
That is a question I don't like to answer.
Lyndon Cooper is crazy.
Every once in a while, a company will appear on the scene with a fresh perspective, a burst of adrenaline, and a passion for excellence. Its humble beginnings are steeped in social transformation. Last to enter the arena, it changes the status quo, and the game will never be the same again. The independent film company appeared on the scene when the commercial sector needed it most. Its metamorphosis blossomed with the production of the most creative television commercials in St Lucia, and they do it all absolutely free. From marketing concepts, surveys and research, to professionally produced ads for social media and television, and the most engaging documentaries in the English-speaking Caribbean. With heavy investments in technology and a focus on building the technical and service capacity of its nimble team, it prides itself on being the little company that could. The Independent Film Company Incorporated, changing yesterday's game, rewriting today's roles, and charting the way for multimedia production here, now, and beyond. Life is a series of triumphs and trials. The circle of life has all the usual certainties, and of course, the unpredictable. Just one can affect you and your loved ones. Sadly, many fail to prepare for the unforeseen. Thankfully, we've been here for over 138 years, helping you plan and recover. We offer peace of mind at that critical moment. GTM Insurance, sound, solid, and reliable. Call us today at 458-6300 or log on to gtminsurance.net.
Like many others, I watched the protest on Facebook Live. I was genuinely uninterested in local football, but I couldn't help pay close attention to the players and pundits as they expressed their outrage for St Lucia not participating in the World Cup qualifiers. And it was this spark that led to this production. But being a correspondent steeped in research, I peeled away the layers to uncover whether this problem existed anywhere else. I learned that more recently, Guadeloupe, Antigua and Barbuda, and the Turks and Caicos were unable to participate in qualified matches. These same afflictions plagued the Trinidad and Tobago under-14 teams, resulting in their non-participation in the Caribbean Football Union competition. I spoke to all parties concerned relating to the issue and was able to deduce the following reasons for St Lucia's non-participation in the 2022 World Cup qualified matches. In 2019, in an effort to prepare for the upcoming World Cup qualifiers, the SLFA hired Jamal Shabazz, a Trinidadian coach with immense experience, as head coach for the St Lucia senior men's team. Under his guidance, a squad of footballers comprising foreign-based and local players was finalized and commenced training. The 2019 CONCACAF Nations League was sold as the new qualifier that will be used for future World Cup championships. Therefore, St Lucia focused on playing in this competition as an avenue for qualification and a path to the upcoming 2022 World Cup. It was on this basis that the SLFA believed that their journey towards qualification to the World Cup had ended, based on St Lucia's unsuccessful results in the 2019 CONCACAF Nations League Championship. The SLFA spent in excess of $1 million during the 2019 CONCACAF Nations League campaign and still did not progress to a higher division at the conclusion of the championship. The COVID-19 pandemic, which got to our shores in March 2020, created havoc. The country was under constant lockdowns. The medical fraternity and the government were inundated, and all sporting activities, along with other commercial activities, were shut down. International travel was curtailed. 14-day quarantines and isolation periods were the order of the day. All championships were abandoned, and the SLFA's office closed for an extended period. Despite these challenges, the St Lucia Football Association identified foreign-based players and engaged them via Zoom. They explored the possibility of getting a mixed foreign-local team in combined training, but faced the following challenges. Number one, very early it was evident that the national team was below par, as it was unable to adequately prepare. Number two, that every foreign player would have to go into quarantine for 14 days on arrival into St. Lucia, and similarly when they return to their home country. Number three, the clubs from which the professional players emanated were not willing to let their players out for an extended period, much less 6 weeks. 4. The clubs were also fearful that their players would be exposed to the virus and contaminate the other players and club personnel on their return. Number 5. The cost of travel became excessive during the pandemic, as most commercial flights were grounded. The SLFA had to gamble the exorbitant cost of private charters and navigate the majority of closed borders in Europe. Number 6. The St. Lucia Football Association also deemed it irresponsible to request a waiver to allow national training amidst a seeming crisis and lockdowns to avert the spread of COVID-19 virus at the time. Number 7. Worse yet, the coach was stuck in Trinidad and unable to travel to St. Lucia as a result of the closure of Trinidad and St. Lucian borders, which made strategic training virtually impossible. Unfortunately, during this time, the St. Lucia Football Association did not formally contact the local-based players. They kept in touch with the foreign-based players as they were in training with their clubs in preparation for integration into the St. Lucia national team. The hope of participation was kept alive down to the wire. Then came the dreaded announcement.
At no point did the St. Lucia Football Association consented to playing any World Cup qualifier in 2021. Our journey for Qatar ended when we moved from 2nd division to 4th division. There was nothing on the table. At no time did I, Lyndon Cooper, make any individual decision to withdraw St. Lucia off of it. You can only withdraw if you consent.
Aaron King is a product of St. Lucia, a football junkie who got the golden opportunity in 1994 with a full scholarship to East Stroudsburg University in Pennsylvania. There, he not only excelled at soccer, but went on to earn a bachelor's degree in accounting and economics. This experience planted in Aaron the seed to pay it forward and birthed the Free Kick Foundation.
The Free Kick Foundation is an organization that seeks to provide an avenue for kids from marginalized areas so that they could fulfill their dreams, specifically helping them get opportunities in the US to go to school. Over the last 5 years, we've been successful in getting over 75 student athletes from various islands, but almost 52% from St. Lucia get opportunities to go to school in the US. We came up with a unique event called the College Player Showcase, where we invited 10 to 15 college coaches down to St. Lucia. We pre-screened over probably 100, 150 kids for academic ability, football ability, of course. But again, you could be Maradona. If you cannot get into school, then you're not really. It's not worth anybody's time, really.
Take me to the practicality on these days. What exactly happens?
On the Saturday we have the coaches take sessions. So that means the coaches out there actually working with the kids. You know, we thought that to be better because, you know, instead of a coach staying in the stand and seeing a kid play, he get that personal relationship, because sometimes that could be the difference between him choosing you or him choosing me.
The policy of the SLFA in the last 6, 7, or 8 years is to ensure that every national player who gets a scholarship, we assist them. The first point of contact is going to ensure that they go to Barbados for a visa. We most times or all the time pays the airfares and the visa costs and give them a one-way ticket to school. And if there are any challenges in terms of kids not being able to pay some costs of the scholarship, we would at least do a one-time payment for them. What I've noticed is that the schools that are selected, the standard of play is not far or close to what we do for a national team at the national level, simply because one has to show an appreciation. The standard of play for a college is for education, but the standard of play for a 17-year-old on the national under 17 team is to qualify for a World Cup. So the input, the expertise, the resources are going to be different. I think we have outgrown the idea of bringing players outside of a college system rather than sending them to play at better clubs and universities.
It's a young lady, she's from Soufre, St Lucia, and it almost brought me to tears when I saw her graduate with a degree in finance last May, right? And what even it got me more emotional was the fact that, she's working on a master's in international business, right? So I said to myself, here's this girl who came from St Lucia, who really didn't have too much going for her. She came to our program, she came to our college fair showcase, got an opportunity to go to Essex College in the US. After that, she's at Goldie Beacon in Maryland, and she's working on a master's. So next year she'll have a master's in international business, which is incredible, just because she could play a little football.
How did you get into football?
Growing up, I've been watching my dad and my uncles and cousins play for Ghetto Stars. So my love for football started at the age of 4, and it went on to Mr. Aloysius and Mr. Michael Casabal creating a grassroots program in Soufre, where I was the only female.
Tell me about Free Kick Foundation and how you graduated to that opportunity.
It was one morning I was home, and then Coach Vance called me and he told me that there's like a Free Kick Foundation stuff that's going on, and he wants me to come and take part in the Free Kick Foundation. So it was a very great opportunity. Then I got a scholarship to a school named Goldie Beacon in Delaware, which was a good opportunity. We got to the semi-finals, we lost 1-0. And then I attained my bachelor's degree here at Goldie Beacon in concentration in management. And then I met this wonderful lady named Miss Jocelyn, where she gave me the opportunity to become a grad assistant. So right now I'm doing my master's degree in management.
Take me back to the day of that tryouts. Tell me the different emotions that were there.
So we went up one Sunday morning, because it was 2 days, and then there was different coaches. We met all the different coaches from different universities, and we had 2 days of different exercise, and we did games where the coaches look to see, and then at the ending of the trials, coaches had to choose who they want to. I got an opportunity to go to 3 schools, but the fact that I didn't have my SATs and I only had my CXCs, I had to go to the one in Jersey, which was called Essex County College.
Tell me about your football at your university.
At Essex County?
Yes.
So the football at Essex County was like the team was like a Caribbean team. So I got adopted very quick, because everybody was like from Trinidad or Jamaica or Africa. So it was like this one nation. And they haven't won in a long time. And we came and we won the championship back to back.
If there was another young lady watching this documentary, interested in football but afraid, or a parent who had a daughter interested in football but afraid to send her out to the field, considering your journey, what would you like to say to them?
people made football think like it's a male sport. It is basically, it's both of them. So I would tell them, the sky is the limit, don't give up. If you know you want something, push for it. But in order to put in a soccer scholarship, education has a big part to do with that.
The other one that stands out for me was Kiroy Lionel from Canaries. I remember, you know, we said, okay, the showcase starts at 9, and he got there late. So he wasn't allowed to showcase. And then with some or the other, we said, okay, let him showcase. And, you know, again, his profile wasn't the best. But, you know, when he made that transition to the US, he got an opportunity to go to, again, Essex College. And when he made that transition to the US, it was just incredible. Like, it was a total 180. You know, his grades were up. He graduated last May with a degree in business management. These kind of stories, we like to tell these stories because we believe these two stories are the reason why an organization like Free Kick Foundation exists.
Even before the semi-pro league could kick off, the St Lucia Football Association has employed novel and expensive initiatives to provide local players with regional semi-pro experience. Mr. Reid, can a semi-pro league work in St Lucia?
It was supposed to have taken place in 2020. It was actually on the cards. The government at the time had agreed to give some financial support towards it, and the SLFA was going to inject some funds into it. And the whole structure is already there, actually.
So explain to viewers what a semi-pro league is and potentially how can it work in St. Lucia.
Okay, so the semi-pro would have been an entity. For example, in every district, you'd have a club set up. So for example, let's say the FIFA semi-pro club, just, you know, that's the name I'm going to give it. And they would have the best players from the teams, all the clubs in Vieux-Fort, coming together. In fact, any player from anywhere could join that club. Okay? And they would have this team that would be a professional football team. Every morning they would have to come together, train maybe 3 times a week, 3 times a day. You have to feed them while they're training. They will be playing matches as often as possible throughout the week in the different locations in St. Lucia, and they will be paid a salary to be a professional footballer. Also here, when a club plays 4 or 5 matches for the year, you know, that's all the player gets. And then the players sometimes have to try and play illegally and try to play for other clubs and other teams so they can get more playing time. So that does not lend to the development of the player. So what we have done now is we are actually looking for clubs, professional clubs, to adopt our players. And we have a few of them now who are playing with those clubs on a full-time basis. Sometimes the clubs are not ready to take the players at a time, and we negotiate with them, how can we do it? We have had instances where players would go on trials. So they want to go to a country to play, we'll pay the FS so they can go and see if they can make a team, you know, play for a professional club. Now, we have opened up the window and said that now, once you are born of St. Lucian parentage or some ancestor of yours is a St. Lucian, we will come at you and tell you, would you like to play for St. Lucia? So we have opened up the floodgates for anybody who can qualify to get a St. Lucian passport to play for St. Lucia. And that is, if you look at Jamaica, Trinidad, you know, all the other countries that have been successful, that has been the model, because they have realized that if they rely on locally based players only, that they will not make it they will not qualify for the World Cup.
Every once in a while, a company will appear on the scene with a fresh perspective, a burst of adrenaline, and a passion for excellence. Its humble beginnings are steeped in social transformation. Last to enter the arena, it changes the status quo, and the game will never be the same again. The independent film company appeared on the scene when the commercial sector needed it most. Its metamorphosis blossomed with the production of the most creative television commercials in St. Lucia, and they do it all absolutely free. From marketing concepts, surveys and research, to professionally produced ads for social media and television, and the most engaging documentaries in the English-speaking Caribbean. With heavy investments in technology and a focus on building the technical and service capacity of its nimble team, it prides itself on being the little company that could. The Independent Film Company Incorporated, changing yesterday's game, rewriting today's roles, and charting the way for multimedia production here, now, and beyond.
Hey, stop it.
That's what I'm here for.
For over 138 years, we've had your back. From home contents to medical, auto to business continuity. GTM Insurance. Sound, solid, and reliable.
We pay for the last 10 years for the usage of every single playing field in this country, whether it's community or not. Outside of the lights, every single playing field is paid for.
Mr. Cooper, you know people won't believe that, right?
Fine. I'm saying this to you.
The SLFA has to pay, for example, if the guys need to play on Gosley Field. They pay who?
Yes. No, I'm saying this to you.
Who would the SLFA have to pay?
At the time, they were committees, and then they moved to village councils, and then they moved to constituency councils.
But one would imagine that this is for national sport.
No, there's no imagination. That's the reality of it.
Why would the SLFA have to pay for it?
If we do not pay, it's because SLFA choose not to pay, but the maintenance and the fixing of the field to get the field ready would be at the cost of the SLFA. For us to play Island Cup last year before it was aborted, it cost us $49,000 to prepare fields. That's the reality of it.
Mr. Cooper, you know the average person is going to believe that the government of St Lucia should be paying these fees, right?
No, I'm not disputing who should not. I'm telling you what the cost factor is. That's where the millions goes to.
So, what is the government's role in all of this when they speak of development of sports in St. Lucia?
It depends on which government and what the philosophy is.
As head coach, you have to deal with multiple surfaces for training. Tell me pros and cons of the artificial turf.
It is not undulating, it is not rough, so you get a good run of the ball. So in terms of the movement of the ball, that is a positive. In terms of the weather, when it rains, does not really affect you in terms of the artificial turf, but it also has its disadvantages. Because whereas the grass turf, you may be able to train at any time of the day. Not so with the artificial turf. Between 11, 12 and about 3:34, the heat is extreme. It gets to the points where the guys are going to tell you, coach, see what is wrong with my boots because of the heat that comes from that. It's also a situation that if the guys get to the ground and they get involved in slide tackles, some of the bruises or the gashes that they sustain may not have necessarily been sustained on the grass surface.
Last couple of years, the association also spent a lot of money on that artificial turf. Tell me some of the pros and cons of that.
Okay, so the artificial turf is, I think it came 50 years too late. And why I'm going to say that is because of the weather conditions in St. Lucia, because of the wear and tear on our playing fields. Our playing fields are always in a mess. There's no grass. You know, when there's a dry season, the grass dies. The maintenance system for playing fields and so on is non-existent really. And so you found that when at the beginning of the tournament, you'd have a nice grassy field. In the middle of the tournament, you have dirt and mud and dust. So the artificial turf does not allow us to be able to play every day. We can have 20 teams training on the artificial turf and there's no effect, nothing happens to the turf.
This team came into that finals and they had to win because they had help from up above, from the Most High.
Because we believe in what Rice was doing at the time, we managed to approach them, or they approached us for assistance, and we felt that was a very encouraging thing. So we went on board and we partner with them to ensure that whatsoever they achieve is going to be successful, because we believe what they were doing was keeping an atmosphere, a society within the confines of peace within a fixed period of time. And that is the type of organization from a social standpoint we always want to partner with, because whatever they are doing or will be doing is going to benefit to the safety of both you and me, both in the short term and the long term.
I think one of our signature successes was the program at Bodley, where we actually went into the Bodley facility. We gave them uniforms, equipment. As a matter of fact, there were 2 other guys who actually did a D license, certified. They were certified coaches. They came down to the SLFA just like for 10 days, and they participated and they got certified. They had their own tournaments up there. So I think that was, we really heartened to see that the guys were actively playing with each other and so on.
You've worked with Lyndon Cooper for the last 11 years. What is that like?
Yeah, well, when I first came, he wasn't the president at the time. Smathman was the president. And then he became president. And what I realized was that I used to get phone calls at 6:30 in the morning, and it'll be him, the president saying, Sess, and he'll ask me something, and I'm thinking, President, you could have waited until I came in at 9, 10 o'clock. And then I'd turn up at the office, and his car would be there, regardless of the time. And you drive, on a Saturday, you drive down into town to look at doing some shopping and something, and his car would be outside. So one thing I knew is that we had someone who was passionate and who was prepared to put the time in required.
I think everybody have their own way of doing things, and I think one of the things that we have to understand is how some persons operate. Never will you be working with anybody and there's going to be total agreement on everything. What has to happen is you have to try your utmost, if you believe that you're right, to try to convince. If you're not, then you've got to take a back seat. But I think he's headstrong in some of the things that he wants to do. There have been instances where he has indicated certain things to me and I have not agreed. But a few days down the line, you sit and you think about it and you realize that there is wisdom in it. Because I have told people there is one thing about Lyndon Cooper. Lyndon Cooper is crazy, but there is wisdom in his insanity.
What's it like working with Lyndon Cooper?
Now, that is a question I don't like to answer. And let me tell you why. Because you see, I have worked with him for 7 years. And I must say that he's always thinking ahead. He does not think for today. He thinks, like in 2021, he's thinking for 2040. Now, for the 7 years that we have worked together, I think we have had this kind of symbiotic relationship in terms of what we want to do and how we want to do it. There are times when we don't agree on certain things and we speak with each other, and he'll see, what you say is making more sense, or we'll improvise in terms of the ideas. Or I'll say to him, but President, what you saying is making sense, and we move on with it. Now, working with him has been a real fantastic experience to me, in that he understands the role of the organization. He understands that the organization is not him, that he's just passing through the organization. He understands that there are persons within the organization who have a role to play and to make things happen. Although he has to make sure everybody is in sync with the philosophy of the organization, with a mission and a statement of getting to a World Cup, he understands that clearly, but he also understands that everybody must play their part and their role. Now, some people may not do it, and we have to deal with them, but he understands that role. And what I admire about him is that he gives everybody the opportunity to do what they have to do.
Mr. Cooper, discuss in detail the increase in FIFA funding to the SLFA and how exactly these funds are being used.
There's nothing automatic about the $4 million we're entitled to. You have to create the projects. It must be part of your strategic plan. It has to be part of your contract of our great objective with FIFA. So it's not because you're entitled to $4 million a year for projects that they are going to give you the money. The project has to be created, and there are threshold and auditing standards that has to be met.
For you, what is the most difficult thing about being the president of the Football Association?
Being repetitious to people outside the membership of the SLFA.
That gets you on
difficult challenge.
That gets you on your nerves, huh?
Yeah.
Being asked the same question in 15 different ways.
No. Knowing that the answer is there, we still have to go and explain it and repeat it.
Do you find that you're often misconstrued in the press?
No. I think the press has its agenda and its motive. What it does, it allows persons to vent under the disguise of freedom of expression.
What is your ultimate goal as president of the St Lucia Football Association?
To get to the next World Cup at any age.
For you, in one sentence, what is your ultimate goal as the technical director of the SLFA?
To get to a World Cup.
Our ultimate goal is to get to play a World Cup, to qualify for a World Cup.
Could go on and on, the fool has never been told. Could go on and on, the fool has never been told. Could go on and on, the fool has never been told.
Every once in a while, a company will appear on the scene with a fresh perspective, a burst of adrenaline, and a passion for excellence. Its humble beginnings are steeped in social transformation. Last to enter the arena, it changes the status quo, and the game will never be the same again. The independent film company appeared on the scene when the commercial sector needed it most. Its metamorphosis blossomed with the production of the most creative television commercials in St Lucia, and they do it all absolutely free. From marketing concepts, surveys and research, to professionally produced ads for social media and television, and the most engaging documentaries in the English-speaking Caribbean. With heavy investments in technology and a focus on building the technical and service capacity of its nimble team, it prides itself on being the little company that could. The Independent Film Company Incorporated, changing yesterday's game, rewriting today's roles, and charting the way for multimedia production here, now, and beyond.